You might as well just remove Jing Yuan from the equation and just compare Aglaea to okay, you know what? Editor crowd how. Future proof is not what you think it means. An Aglaea theory. If you are watching this segment after Aglaea's early access, then you know, I told you so, right? So future proof is not what you think. Alright, what the hell is going on here?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and we're almost at 8,000 subscribers.
Yippee!
Maybe it's actually 8,000 when I post this video. But anyway, Honkai Star Rail as a live service game lives in the moment with constant updates. By nature of the character collector
Okay, wait, pause. Let me just bring up my subtitles.
Lives in the moment with constant updates. By nature of the character collector gacha, HSR releases new characters periodically, and you as a player must decide if you want to spend your limited resources to make an investment on these characters. But as expected, it is in the best interest profit-wise to create more FOMO and minimize skipping as much as possible.
Absolutely, and we talked about this extensively for the past 1 week and got cancelled by the entirety of Twitter, you know. FOMO. Can you beat the FOMO? It is what it is.
Ways to do this is to punish skipping by increasing demand of numbers to the point of roster obsolescence. This is what we know as power creep. While power creep is not necessary for any game genre, it is by far one of the most effective tools to get people to spend on gachas, and why it's still used today despite its negative connotation. Not saying it is a correct method, but it's simply the truth of tactics like these. Naturally, units that can resist power creep are more valuable. The underlying designs that allows longer viability is called future-proofing, and while no unit is immune against the sands of time in Star Rail as completely future-proof characters, there are those characters that have more resilience than others. Many people naturally assume that higher damage characters will age better later on, and thus is future-proof and will pull on it. The truth is that there is a more common factor that can dictate whether or not a unit can catch up in the future: their design space. A unit that has already reached their potential best team has less room to grow than a unit that doesn't have their best potential team yet. We've seen this throughout the history of the game. Things like a unit having a flawed mechanic, a unit lacking the push for a unique trait with few competitors, or even strong units that operate at a handicap through their teams. These characters are oftentimes characters that are likely to have some weird resurgence later on than those that have smaller design spaces to move forward.
I just want to point out this one thing. Do you guys think Topaz aged well? Yes. Yes. No. Yes. I kind of want to bring you guys through to the history of Topaz. Topaz released 3 times. Her first release was alongside Jing Liu, as well as the first ever rerun Scylla. Her second release was the first rerun alongside Acheron and Adventure. And then the final release was gonna be right here, alongside, I believe this is Fei Xiao, right? Oh no, yeah, it was with Ling Sha. Barbin was with Fei Xiao, because back then we did a triple event, right? So I kind of want to make this point over here. The reason why is because whether or not a unit ages well or like stood the test of time, the value, the inherent value of your pools for this specific unit, right? It doesn't only depend on a singular unit. It also depends on the substitutes. If you didn't pull for Topaz and you pulled for Jing Liu, I think we can all come to a collective agreement that this initial launch of Jing Liu plus Topaz was outvalued at this particular juncture, right? We were doing shit like level 40 Jing Liu, 0 cycles, all that kind of stuff, but Topaz was, at that point of time, it was outvalued by Jing Liu, because she didn't really have any usage aside from like Jing Yuan and Kelala, and even for them it's like a you're trying to force a fat ass into the team, right? It's not that synergistic. Fast forward to around this ballpark, daughter ratio is already out. So at this particular point with Topaz rerun right here, she was technically really good with daughter ratio, except you needed her fucking E1. If you didn't get the E1, it was technically only 1 debuff. That was with the vulnerability debuff from Nambi, right? And daughter ratio's base chance, you can't really guarantee it. You know what's another unit that gives you 1 debuff? Pepella! Pepella plus Ting Yun. It was one of the best free-to-play team comps for daughter ratio. And at that specific point of time, you pulling for an, let's just say E0 S0 Topaz, I would say the value of Topaz right there, it probably also wouldn't be that high, because you're essentially spending Stellar Jades, get a not even a definitive upgrade compared to a free 4-star unit like Pella. So at this point, her value got outshadowed by Jing Liu, and then for this point, her value from a Stellar Jade to Stellar Jade performance, it was low-key outshadowed by Pella because we didn't have Fei Xiao back then, right? And then fast forward to her most recent rerun with Lingsha, the foundation of the Fart team, right? The T in Fart. She was, really good with Fei Xiao. We have additional Nami follow-ups, additional follow-up damage vulnerability, can trigger more follow-ups to build more stacks for Fei Xiao. And then we have this other free unit that came alongside the recent Xianzhou update after Pelican, March 7th. Even if it was slightly over or under, right? You're talking about an E1 Topaz compared to a literal free 4-star unit that everybody would have gotten. Do you think the value of your Stellar Jades, I'm not talking about the value of Topaz, the value of your Stellar Jades, would you have saved it, because that's like basically 70, 80, 90 pools, for potentially something else that had less replaceability? I'll just leave it up to you guys to decide, right? But I feel that the bottom line is, for all the times that Topaz got released, there was somehow always a way where players didn't really need to invest in the Stellar Jades for Topaz. Despite the fact that one could say she aged well, right? She definitely aged well compared to her first launch all the way up until Fei Xiao, because she definitely has a lot more use for Fei Xiao now, right? She aged like wine, right? She aged like wine.
For a unique trait with few competitors, or even strong units that operate at a handicap through their team.
You need Topaz for overall team treasure finding, by the way. You know what? You're absolutely goddamn right. You're absolutely goddamn. Topaz Nambi is the GOAT for treasure, absolutely.
These characters are oftentimes characters that are likely to have some weird resurgence later on than those that have smaller design spaces to move forward. I thought about this more and more, and there's a lot more examples of this common quote-unquote future-proofing, and I thought the best examples are the 3 lightning crit damage dealers who are all limited. All 3 of these can exhibit the most common types of future-proofing used in Star Rail. Without further ado, let's see how future-proofing is.
You might as well just remove Jing Yuan from the equation and just compare Aglaea to okay, you know what, editor crowd how
done in Star Rail in this mini theorem of a video. Do mechanical flaws actually allow units to stay viable? While it seems odd to put Jing Yuan in a future-proofing discussion in any form, Jing Yuan has remained one of the most steadily balanced units in the game. One part of this is how easy he is to buff. No oversaturation of stats with high multipliers means he can practically take most crit-based buffs and get boosted by them more as buffers get stronger. But truthfully, Jing Yuan is not unique on that front, so what about the other part? Jing Yuan ironically has survived the 3.0 due to one thing, his Lightning Lord's clunkiness. From the start, Jing Yuan was balanced around his Lightning Lord being particularly uninteractive and oftentimes a shackle due to its mechanical flaws. The existence of the shackle gives Jing Yuan an upper edge that will allow him to break his ceiling over time. Throughout his meta journey, you can track his biggest updates and how each of them was tied to interacting with Lightning Lord. At first, he had Tingyun and Bronya. However, Bronya's short buffs did not allow Lightning Lord's multipliers to shine. He felt much worse to crowd control due to Lightning Lord's tuning. His first updates were Fushuan and Huohuo to remove Lightning Lord's CC issues. His second update was Sparkle, who had long enough buffs to finally buff Lightning Lord, and the Ash Blazing set was the most powerful on him specifically. His third and final update is Sunday, who could finally advance.
This was a very, very long-winded way of saying Sunday saved Jing Yuan for 3.0. Because even if you include all these, right, never was there at any point of time where you would have felt that Jing Yuan was like a tier 0 DPS. Only with Sunday, it completely fixed this Lightning Lord problem being too fucking slow. So let's just say, for example, Tingyun Bronya, back then 1.0, nobody had ending, so it is what it is, just millions of the best you have. Fu Xuan Huan, technically, yeah, it could prevent the crowd control, but a lot of times, I'm not sure if you guys notice, first of all, Huan's cleanse, it doesn't fucking take turn until the cleanse actually happens on the unit turn. So if, let's just say, like, God forbid your Jing Yuan got imprisoned, but the talent didn't activate, your Lightning Lord was still gone. If you get Savrod Zahendo grabbed, you're dead, buddy, right? Fu Xuan technically is a little bit better because it's like a one-time singular guaranteed cleanse, not really cleanse, but prevent all crowd control. Except you only refresh this once every single time you use a skill. So it's also not very reliable. Sparkle and Ash Blazing, when they came out, to be fair, it is a very, very considerable upgrade, but it still wasn't really enough. Most people were either focusing her with Mono Quantum or A2 Deal. Not a lot of people were saying like, oh my god, Sparkle just made Jing Yuan like a completely different unit. Because even though she does grant Jing Yuan the buffs, it doesn't really fix the problem, which her lineup is just too fucking slow, man. Finally, Sunday came out. I'm like, oh my god, hail Jing Yuan, hail Jing Yuan.
Lightning Lord and give Jing Yuan a massive DPS increase to put him back to a good spot of viability. You can imagine that if Lightning Lord from the start was balanced around being interactive with Bronya, Jing Yuan would have less room to grow from his base 1.0 kit and will eventually not receive many updates later on that would impact him specifically. Because
you can get E6 Bronya, by the way, then it's done.
Because of how unique his gimmick was, and how he in specific was held down, he received one of the biggest damage updates a DPS has ever received after their release, which was almost a total of 2 years. He was never broken, but also was never outright horrible due to how compatible he is with supports and how they kept indirectly upgrading his flawed mechanic. For that amount of longevity as a viable 1.0 character, honestly, that's not a bad deal, and he could have ended up much worse. You can check my Acheron theorem for more information about Acheron's viability and her greatest strength. If you've watched it already, let's move on. Does being restricted to use weaker teams make you more future-proof? Acheron is by far one of the strongest units in the game, with the strongest passive ever conceived. This, along with her multipliers, Omni Toughness Shred, and flexibility to AoE and single target, makes Acheron a meta character for any account. It's just a shame that she's stuck with the weaker Nihility path. Or is it? If you compare Acheron to many top damage dealers, she falls behind due to one thing: her forced usage of the weaker Nihility path. Take for example Jing Yuan, who is a weaker character by many metrics, but his usage of stronger party members allows him to actually catch up with Acheron in his own unique way. Bootil's versatility in team members can output higher numbers and deal with mechanics more than Acheron. There's no point then in adding this restriction to Acheron than for flavor purposes and is only a handicap, right? By objective standards, it is a handicap, but because she was released with this handicap in mind, it means Acheron still has more design spaces to fill out. Here's the deal: Acheron scales so well with her restrictions that even an unimpressive character for any other team is a huge upgrade for Acheron. Best example of this is Zhao Cho. By all metrics, he doesn't change the meta of any teams before him, but because he's relatively impressive compared to Acheron's weaker options, he becomes a significant upgrade to Acheron. You don't even have to take his ult charging into account for this. This means that Acheron has a lot of room to grow, as if her base power wasn't scary enough already. Right now, her best team includes Robin, and that's only because she's the best support in general. Replacing Robin's slot for Acheron teams wouldn't be hard to do, and this unit may not even be considered good. It will still be an insane Acheron upgrade due to fitting the restriction. Acheron's restrictions also applies to debuffs from sustains. There's more room to grow there too. If Acheron from the start did not have these restrictions, she will be much easier to replace. Just a plain lightning damage dealer that would get caught in a tighter numbers game. Ironically, being locked to using weaker units made her more viable for the future. Even with another lightning damage dealer releasing, Acheron still remains a looming threat because of how little it takes for her to get a huge meta update. And for Acheron to be released nearly a year ago and still tearing up the meta rankings, honestly, that's quite impressive.
Okay, wait, before bro moves to Deka, right? Do you know who else has this exact same thingy that Acheron is going through? Herta, absolutely. It is almost a exact one-to-one copy for Herta. It is kind of like releasing a game before releasing DLC versus releasing one entire game. That's basically how it works. So obviously, if you were to not finish up the entirety of the game at one go, and with every subsequent DLC updates, you're gonna be feeling stronger and stronger and stronger. So Herta perfectly encapsulates this, because right now she is completely fine without any of the 5-star options, because none of the 5-star options were really built for Herta. Alright, you run out with RMC, you run out with Baby Herta, you run out with Saval, run out with Argenti, run out with Jay, run out with Bobbin, run out with Sunday, plus whatever sustain it is. It's not like a world of difference as compared to, for example, if you were to run Jing Yuan with Sunday or Jing Yuan without Sunday. That is a huge world of difference, right? Acheron, I would say, running her with other nihilities before Jiao Qiu released it's also not that big of a difference, right? Whether or not you wanted to run, I mean, honestly, we don't really have a lot of hidden debuffs. It's basically just Pella, right? That's really the only 4-star debuffer. Yeah, to be fair, there's not really a lot of like different substitutes, and Sail Wolf is like, you know. Then Xiao Qiu came out, and then he is almost inseparable of Acheron because the strength of Acheron considerably went up because of how synergistic this DLC is, right? The Elden Ring, the Acheron DLC, that is Xiao Qiu, changed everything. And Dihirda is gonna be something very similar to Acheron. The moment they release like a tailor-made erudition, I'm not talking about like a sub DPS or whatever it is, but like a legitimate erudition class unit that acts as like a harmony support or acts as like a debuffer. Any sort of erudition unit that can add this role is gonna be super good, because before we have this for erudition, none of our erudition units are really like a support, right? We have this pseudo erudition support buff for like Dihirda, right? You can run the battery Saval or the battery Baby Herda, but they are not really meant to be built that way, right? Originally speaking anyways, right? We kind of just came up with the Ego and the Lushaka, and then they just... But in the future, if we actually have a dedicated erudition, the entire kit for the fella, it was just about buffing, energy, more buffs. It will be completely different. Like the feeling of running Baby Herta versus a 5-star actual proper support erudition is gonna make Dihirda feel like 90. Exactly like how Acheron feels like with or without Xiao Qiu. And that is just erudition, right? That is just erudition. We still haven't even seen like a, I guess you could call it an erudition support, right? Some kind of support that can deal, you know, because the way Herta's kit works was to, you know, deal as much damage to as many different enemies as possible at the same time, right? We kind of got teased that Tribi is a support that might be able to fill this role with his AoE hits and all that kind of stuff. So maybe we might just see another diabolical Dihirda upgrade in 3.1. And then finally, same thing for Acheron. Any sort of sustain that can deal with multiple targets at the same time is going to be a lot more synergistic than targets without. Right now, technically, we only have Lingsha, but Lingsha is not really built for Herta perfectly because she's half her kit is still tied with break damage, which Herta doesn't get, right? So in the future, if they release a version 3 sustain, which is strictly focused on this multi-targeting system, Dihirda is going to age very similar to Acheron, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. The Emanator of Nihility, which is not really Nihility, she's a self, annihilation, or whatever, right? And now the Emanator of Erudition, they are both having this very similar formula of like, how would this unit improve with time? It's almost like MiHoYo doesn't really want to fully power creep this kind of like Emanator character. Sort of like, I guess if you play Genshin, people are saying that Archons in Genshin takes a very long ass and power creep. I feel like they're using the exact same formula here. So if you were to pull for, you know, maybe version 4 Emanator, version 5 Emanator, chances are there are gonna be more DLCs coming out to support them and inevitably increase their lifespan, right? So that's gonna be that. Now for the Deikai of the Deikais.
Okay, Wave, you pretty much mentioned that starting at a handicap is the best way to be future-proof, but it doesn't have to be like that, right? Is there any other way than a straight-up handicap for a unit to be used later on? Do note that what I will say is based on my opinion of future TC and something they can easily not do, though it shouldn't take away that the design space of this unit has a lot of room to grow. Aglaea will be releasing soon, and from the look of things, she's quite exciting. She is a turbo speed DPS that can reach up to 8 or more attacks in 100 action value, all on her own in a single ultimate cycle with no need for SP. He has a lot of free stats and has a very high max energy.
Okay, wait, pause. 8 is... Okay, 8 without any external help. I'm just gonna say right now, it's impossible. Alright? It's straight up impossible. You 100% need somebody to help her out. And you guys will see very quickly why this is the case. Her ultimate is 350 energy cost, right?
Now she's considered a hyper carry due to how strong her damage is. But as illustrated earlier, this may not be true for very long. And if you're a leaks watcher, you'd probably know more about that. Aglaea being a plain lightning hyper carry leads to less design spaces. How can Aglaea find herself in the future if her hyper carry role is narrow from the start? Well, it's her frequency of attacks. Along with the fact that Aglaea has so many attacks on her own at a short period of time, she has a unique joint attack which can trigger additional damage twice. Assuming a turn advancer, that's 12 procs of additional damage in one cycle. Not even the Mosquito Bites team with Fei Xiao can compete with this much attacks in that short amount of action value. We already see that this can be something that works with the Mosquito Bites team, and Robin isn't exactly focused solely on additional damage. Imagine a unit that is actually tuned for additional damage setups. This means that once Aglaea's numbers start to fall as a hyper carry, an additional damage dealer who can do more damage than her will see her as a sub DPS and become an
Oh my god, battery Aglaea is crazy. We have battery Saval, we have battery Herta, we have battery Argenti. Imagine a battery Aglaea. She does no damage, 4-piece ego. Oh my god, wait, chat, I can predict how this is gonna cook. They are gonna make a fucking 4-piece set that gives you energy regeneration. Holy fuck, that would be crazy. We have never gotten a 4-piece ER. And if the moment they cook that shit, like if let's just say 4-piece gives that 10% ER, because I think that's fair, right? 2-piece is 5%. If they made 4-piece, 10%, combine that with Lushaka plus 15% ER of 19.4, that is 34.4% energy regeneration, right? 34.4% energy regeneration, and then all they need is to release some crazy ass, I don't know, a remembrance light cone that has energy regeneration. So Blood just perma spams ultimate without any buffs, and her only purpose is just, you know, pew pew pew. She'll just act like, oh my god, she's legit just Ashe from League of Legends, you know, and then eventually we're gonna give her a buff somewhat similar to DPS, and then she just red big guns all the way. Absolutely.
an enabler, proccing additional damage an absurd amount of times that nobody else could. This design's
the utility-based AD carry, right? She fires the ultimate, but she doesn't really deal damage. Okay, I think Ashe does a shit ton of damage, but it depends on
space of her as a support will, I can bet you, to be something that she will eventually be the best at and revive her viability. This is why even traits that seem okay just for now are good for future viability. Imagine if she didn't have this unique gimmick. You can look at other examples like Argenti and Serval for the Herta team. As a plain hypercarry, Argenti wasn't going to last very long, but the one unique thing he has is incredible ult spams, which leads to him rising from the grave and supporting the Herta. Much like Aglaea, a unique trait that may be useless for now can eventually bloom into their lifeline to become the meta once more. Again, it's hard to make guarantees on gacha in general, especially with future characters. A character like Blade, who actually does have a large design space, hasn't been dealt quite well with, which leads to his notoriety. And a character that can be
It will be a damn shame if they ever make Blade, like, you know. Okay, anyways.
as complete as Firefly can still be popular and meta due to other factors. Future-proofing is a deep subject, and these are only examples why it isn't strictly bigger numbers that make the difference of a unit's shelf life. Even their weaknesses becoming strengths are a huge part of it, and things that you may never see becoming viable end up being their lifeline for the future. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. I actually was thinking halfway through writing this to make it on Argenti theorem, I guess. That actually has a nice ring to it. I should have probably done that. Maybe I'll remake this video to be the Argenti theorem, but that will wait for another day. I hope you guys didn't mind the length of this video that it took to release. I really was lacking creative flow, so I have no excuses. My brain just farted. Like, share, subscribe, do the algorithm stuff, and
yippee! Honestly, very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, I don't think this is so much so like the Aglaea theory. It kind of feels like the expansion packs. The expansion packs. Way back in the days, in the early days of Hearthstone, you had to literally buy like Nox Ramus. Right? You had to buy Black Fire Mountain to access the goddamn story and get their cards. That was like really back then, right? Okay, I'm showing my status, but you know StarCraft? StarCraft 2. It came out with Wings of Liberty, Heart of the Swarm, Legacy of the Void. Nowadays, fuck man, you get the whole game. You basically get the whole game, even though you have to pay for the campaign. But back then, it was like you had to literally pay $100, $100 to buy StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. Now it's like free. So my point is, we have some units that are just a single game, a base game with nothing. Maybe there's something coming out, right? Technically, Redemption 2, right? We have RDR 2. I'm not sure if they're ever releasing RDR 3, but like, it's gonna probably take a little bit. Whereas we know some games, they just pump out DLC like it's nobody's business, right? It's a very interesting take on power creep in a sense where most units, even if they are, the moment that they are released, have some flaws within their kit, but it was intentionally designed that way so that they have this room to cook, right? It's either you give your customers a fully cooked meal, Or you give your customers like a teppanyaki, right? You slowly cook and grill the meat in front of your customers, and you make them feel the FOMO even more. You make them smell the seafood, the grilled fish, the steak sizzling in front of their face. Like, oh my god, I want to eat it now. I want to eat it now. And then the next course and the next one, as compared to like one meal where just give everything at one shot, right? So a very, very, very interesting take. Give Wavemans a like, a subscribe. Our word of the day is gonna be, I'm playing Iron Fist right now. Join Twitch, join YouTube, join Discord, join Twitter, join Twitter, all the rest of guys. See you guys next time. Take care.